Yep.
This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Forward Maryland. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Steve Hunt. Happy weekend, everybody.
And of course, all these episodes where Steve wore all his Orioles stuff, I deck out in the orange and black and look at him looking all official. Steve, is that like an FBI polo shirt you're wearing? Why might you be wearing an FBI polo shirt? If indeed that's what it is. And if it's not,
NSA.
why not?
It's an NSA shirt. It was from a visit that I made years ago when my son was in Cub Scouts. And I'm wearing this in honor of one Donald John Trump, who apparently doesn't know anything about how shit's done in the world of top secret materials. So this is my tribute to the former guy.
Having been a former member of the National Security Department at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, I can tell you that our man Trump is in a heap of trouble. To all of you MAGA heads out there who are watching and or listening at the podcast, by the way, Howard County Young Republicans, I see you. I know what you do. Guess what? Your boy sucks. He ought to go to jail. Your party is corrupt, and you all are morons. So post that and say, here's Democrats calling us out for being idiots, because your whole party is top to bottom full of fools.
Absolutely.
I love you.
Absolutely. I mean, who is the fool? He or she who is the fool, or he or she or they who follow said fool. And some of the tweets and press conferences and, well, the continued decline and fall of Elise Stefanik as an intelligent human being. Oh, by the way, the leading gubernatorial I guess the Republican nominee now for governor for the great state of Maryland. Nice one you put out there, Delegate Cox. I mean, Wes Moore must be like, it wasn't supposed to be this easy.
I'm still where I was the other week on Wes Moore, but don't even get me started on Elise Stefanik and the rest of these people, because there's not the only one with a functioning brain is McConnell, for want of a better term, and just don't even go there. However, we will be talking about this much more a week from Sunday at the illustrious celebration of Forward Maryland 200. No podcast in the history of Howard County has reached the 200 episode milestone. Forward Maryland, once again, like we always are first and we're best. So we will be here Sunday at 11, and we're bringing back up, as original co-host of the podcast, Jason Boone joins us for what is sure to be a lively hour of what we like to call zesty topicality.
The reappearance of the OG himself, Jason Booms, could rival Ric Flair's last match that was recently held in Nashville. It could be that good.
I actually think it's going to be better than that.
Well, yeah, Jay Lethal tried to make it something, but
he never should have dropped the Macho Man imitation gimmick. But anyway, I am very happy. I am all oozed out because I won $13 last night. I won $13 last night. I happened to be in Baltimore City. I stopped into Horseshoe Casino, put down $10 on the O's to win last night's game, and I'm going back today to collect my $23. Steve, I also noticed that a $20 bet on the Orioles to win the division, currently they're in a wild card spot, of course, after having had a 0.0% chance of making the postseason. Now it's a 50% chance, but the Orioles being 10.5 games behind the Yanks, a bet of $20 for the Orioles to win the division could net you a cool $5,600. Steve, I'm tempted. I can bet my 20 and still have $3 left over. Is it worth taking?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, those are better than Powerball or lottery odds. I mean, it's $20. I mean, all of us can think about $20 that we spent on something that made even less sense than this bet, your odds are a whole lot better. I got to tell you, that's a tempting bet, man.
I mean, I spent $20 thinking that Howard Hughes Corporation would have the interests of people in Columbia at heart. And look at how much good that did me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about the contributions I made to certain candidates nationwide. I mean, those were some bets that didn't pay off. So yeah, and it was much more than $20. I can guarantee you that. So
all right. So everybody out there in viewer and listener land, say no to Beto, say yes to the O's to win the division.
Yep.
Although I mean, he might not like it. He may be crying through his mascara and jumping up and down on Starbucks tables saying, I don't know what's going on in Maryland. But I don't know. I would like to see Beto win, but also I've had enough of Beto, Steve.
Yeah, I did dig what he did to the person laughing at, I don't know if you saw the clip of a recent, I don't know if it was a town hall or a meet and greet, and there was apparently a Greg Abbott supporter who was laughing when Beto was talking about, gun safety, and he's talking about Uvalde, and he was laughing. And Beto turns to the guy, and this was caught. I mean, it went viral. I'm surprised you haven't seen it. He turns to the guy and says, "This might be funny to you, motherfucker, but it's not funny to me." I about lost my mind. I'm like, you know what? For all the talk about politicians, they need to be more honest, they need to be more real. It doesn't get any realer than that. I know there were, especially Republican side, I mean, hypocrisy without names are the GOP, clutching their pearls that, oh my God, Beto uttered a profanity at a person. I'm like, excuse me? Come on. You love Trump because he said whatever he wants to say. So Beto dropping it like it's hot. Okay, I'm still not working.
I'm giving credit to the Beto for this. He knows that he's all in on this. I mean, this is literally Texas Hold'em. I mean, he either wins this or his political career is done.
Yeah.
I mean, after losing Senate, the showing he had in the presidential sweepstakes, and then losing Texas governor, and running at the campaign he is, which is actually a pretty decent campaign. If he loses, he's out. If he loses, he needs to go head up a nonprofit and, go, write books or join a think tank or something, because he's out. So he's going all in, and he's unapologetic about it. So I give him a lot of credit about that. I'm going to amend what I said. I'm going to say, people out there in viewer and listener land, you could give $20 to the Orioles and then give $20 to Beto. In fact, maybe I ought to wish you give just your money to Beto, because then that means the odds stay high for me. Although I lock in my odds today, 280 to 1, baby.
Hey, lock it down. Lock it down.
And that is the last we're going to be talking about Beto O'Rourke today, because he figures into none of the calculus of today's topic, as we talk about a 2024 Democratic presidential nominating session or competition without Joe Biden. So lots of talk in the media about will he or won't he, will President Biden run for re-election? We will talk about the probability of that later. However, what we want to focus on today is, what will that look like? What would a presidential nominating primary season look like in 2024? And to help me today, I hung out earlier this week with friend of the podcast, former guest on the podcast, Monica Biddix, who has a good amount of experience in the Iowa Democratic Party. And we talked about the first thing, Steve, which is that the Democratic primary calendar is getting ready to get jacked up. There's a lot of belief that the Democratic primary calendar is not serving Democrats well in terms of prioritizing swing states, diverse states, states a Democrat can win. And so instead of having, say, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina lead the way, there might be, for example, Michigan, New Jersey, and Georgia leading the way in a revamped Democratic calendar, which the DNC is considering and will adopt either later this year or sometime next. Steve, what do you know about about this changing calendar, and how do you think it would affect a potential Democratic field in the absence of a Joe Biden? Would it expand the field or would it shrink it?
I think it would. It would neither expand the field or shrink it up front. The problem with the whole Iowa New Hampshire thing, and I know it's a whole nostalgic, you go to the Iowa State, the steak fry, and New Hampshire, the primary, as folks are knocking doors in the snow, and it's something out of a Robert Frost type of thing. But there are very few states in America that are whiter than Iowa and New Hampshire, and it certainly doesn't represent the Democratic Party. And it's what Iowa and New Hampshire have done in the past, have done a really good job of eliminating people who maybe should have gotten a little more of an opportunity to make a run at the thing. It has taken people out who I don't think were bad candidates, weren't running bad campaigns, but you have that L hang on you, and it sticks with donors and potential volunteers, et cetera. So the calendar definitely needs to change. I mean, the only reason that it held up in 2020, as far as, in my opinion, the right person being nominated, was because it was Joe freaking Biden, and because Jim Clyburn came in and said, "Hold up, this ain't over until a more diverse audience gets to speak." And so we had to go through Nevada, we had to go through South Carolina. Biden got back in it. The rest is history. But if not for, quite frankly, communities of color raising their hands and saying, this ain't over until we've at least had something to say, it would have been over. We may not have seen a President Biden. Hell, we may have seen another President Trump. And don't take me there, please. So I don't think Iowa and New Hampshire should be the starting point. I think it should definitely be more diverse. I know there was talk of California, and I don't think that's any more the right approach than in Iowa or New Hampshire because of ideology. I think a swing state would be a great start. I think even maybe an early version of a Super Tuesday, a mini Tuesday, where you bring in several states into the mix, would be a good start. If you want to have Iowa and New Hampshire in the mix with some other states, okay. But I like the Michigan idea. I think that would be a really good one to start out. South Carolina wouldn't be bad. I mean, I could name a few states I think would be good candidates that are diverse, that are true swing states, that certainly would give a good gauge of, can this candidate go all the way, not just to the nomination, but to the general election? We've seen plenty of people win Iowa and New Hampshire, and it's painfully obvious, they can't sustain that. And they're not going to make it all the way home to, inauguration day. So I like the idea of switching it up. I like that a lot. Pick the states, but I like it. Bill, what do you got on that?
Well, so do I. I mean, I think it's fine. I'm in favor of it. I mean, I know there are a lot of states jockeying to be early primary states. Maryland is, in fact, one of them. But I am liking the idea of a Northeast state. I mean, there aren't a lot of states that are competitive in the Northeast. I mean, a New Jersey sounds good, or perhaps a Pennsylvania might be even better. And then the Michigan, Georgia thing sounds good. What would be interesting would be what in the West. I'm not understanding Arizona, for example, or Colorado to be more in contention. Nevada, I think, has a fairly secure place, and that's probably a good thing. But I think, as we're going to start talking about in a minute, I think that, the field for 24, again, should the president not seek re-election, is going to be small by necessity. And I mean, when I say small, maybe I mean smallish, because it's definitely going to be a lot smaller than that, cast of thousands who ran last time. Because when you're thinking about, the president, when would Biden announce that he's not going for re-election? It would probably not be until after the midterms.
Right.
Probably not even until after the new Congress takes over. So now you're thinking about January. And then that's about a year before the first competition of the primary season. So you have to look at candidates who would be able to raise a lot of money quickly, who would be able to garner some name recognition. You have to look at particular lanes. You know, it's not going to be a thing for everybody. You know, I don't see a John Hickenlooper type person or a Seth Moulton jumping in there and saying, I'm in. So I know that, you know, we were talking about the primary calendar. I'm all in favor of it. I think we started to go down the road of talking about the possible fields. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, let me give you two quick X factors here, Bill, before we get into the field for Biden. You mentioned when he would announce. I think I think the X factor here is the former president. I think if, as expected, Trump announces, I think Biden's going to go all in. One, because the age argument just went out the window. And two, because I think he'll take the same mindset he took in 2020 of, I'll be damned if I'm going to let this guy continue to sit in this house. The second thing, when you talked about a smaller field, and you've got a great point there, and I was thinking about that when I said maybe it wouldn't shrink the field. I think it would, if for no other reason but because of money. You could run in Iowa and New Hampshire pretty much on the cheap. New Hampshire a little bit more expensive because you have the Boston market, but you know, you have a Michigan or a Pennsylvania. You got to raise some upfront money to even give that a shot. So I think you're right. I think a calendar change, hell, even Maryland with the DC and Baltimore markets, I think that elevates what you would need up front and would not a Hickenlooper, a Jay Inslee, Seth Moulton, you know, folks like that out. Even you know, Eric Swalwell would be knocked out of the box. So so good point there with the with that change in calendar. I think that does bring that to the mix.
Well, I'm going to end with my thoughts as to how likely all of this might be, because if I share those thoughts now, people might tune out, and we have to give them a reason to stay around. So let's talk about who we think might be viable candidates and what a field would look like. I don't think this field will exceed 10 people. Now, I think there's going to be a couple minor candidates who are going to throw themselves into the ring. You know, I wouldn't say that Anthony Yang, Marianne Williamson, or Tulsi Gabbard have done a lot to distinguish themselves since 2020. So, you know, I'm sure there will be a couple, you know, minor leaguers in the mix. But, you know, where I came down with a field of 8. And let me go over what that field looks like. The top 2 are people who are already in the cabinet, namely the Vice President, Kamala Harris, and Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. I'm not thinking about a Gina Raimondo or a Bill Nelson, the administrator of NASA, you know, former senator from Florida, or Marty Welsh, the former mayor of Boston, who's the labor secretary. I think it would be all but a done deal that the Vice President and Secretary Buttigieg would drop gloves and get into that. I see someone from the northeastern, very liberal lane, the Warren Sanders lane.
Yep.
I see one of them. I don't see both of them. And I'm going to give it to Bernie, because Bernie is Bernie, and he's a tad irascible. And I don't know why Bernie would think it would be a good idea to run. He's the same age as the president, but Bernie is Bernie. So I see him in that.
Well, Bernie has already made it clear, by the way, that if Biden runs, he's not. But if Biden doesn't, all bets are off.
Right.
So Bernie is definitely not to be written off in an open situation.
So there's a name so then we have other lanes. So, you know, there is the safe lane. You know, there's I'm reelected. I'm going to win. You know, I have no next job. Maybe there's a job I'm good at, and it's being president. And also I can raise a ton of money. And also I'm being talked about as a possible candidate, even if President Biden does announce. And that's California Governor Gavin Newsom.
Yep.
So I have him in the mix. Then I go to the bipartisan, we can get things done lane. And there are 2 people there. I thought very strongly about the Sphinx of the United States Senate, Arizona's own Kyrsten Sinema. She would have to give up her seat in order to run. The other person I see in this is Chris Murphy, who has been very effective in reaching across the aisle during this Biden term. And I can see the senator from Connecticut giving it a shot, especially since he would have the ability to go back and run for re-election should he not be successful. And then there's the case of, I don't have to worry about my re-election. That disqualifies the candidate I supported in 2020, Amy Klobuchar. I believe that she would much more prefer to focus on her energies in the Senate and run for re-election in 24. However, New Jersey's Senator Cory Booker is not up for re-election until 2026. So I see no other African-American male in this field. I think Booker, if anything, underachieved during the 2020 election. I see him in it. And then there's no candidate from the South. We have lots of the other geographic areas represented. And I was looking in the South. I was looking towards the great state of Virginia to either of the senators there. But then my eyes gazed southward. And I also have to, again, shout out to Monica about this. And I will just say that this next candidate is from North Carolina. And
the old George shout, I like it.
And he is Governor Roy Cooper.
Yes, sir.
Who also fits into that bucket of not getting reelected again. He has time on his hands. Let's do it. The last lane would be people who are running for reelection or election in 2022. And there are two there who I can see coming from the ranks of the governor. I could see Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan or Stacey Abrams of Georgia running. Stacey Abrams is an amazingly smart woman. And in fact, so is Gretchen Whitmer. But I believe that, Abrams has always been called to a bigger purpose. And I think her bigger purpose is to start to turn the South in the favor of Democrats. Would I see her as a foregone conclusion to run in 28 or in 32? Absolutely. But not so much this time. Whitmer, should she win re-election, falls into that bucket of no other place to go but up. She's forming a nice little cult of personality for herself. I mean, her nickname of Big Gretch, which was first a derogatory name, has now become endearing for her. And in fact, to donate, you just need to text Big Gretch to a certain phone number and poof, you donate $10 to her campaign. I have her in. So that gives me 8 candidates, Steve. What do you think?
I like your list. I like your list a lot. I think it makes logical sense. I did not come up with a formal list, but I did make some notes here today and some people who you had that I also have. So just to go through this really quickly, it is a shock to me that the sitting vice president it would face a wide open field. But I think that is a function of, one, a god-awful campaign in 2020 that was disorganized and should have been much better than it was, but it wasn't. And it flamed out so early that I just don't think people take her seriously. And I just don't know if she's done anything as vice president that has changed that. It's almost the feel that you had back in the day about a Dan Quayle, who, was vice president of George H.W. Bush, but the prevailing wisdom, even when he was sworn in, was this man's never going to be president. Now, for different reasons than Harris. I don't want to say that Harris is Quayle, but just that kind of that same positioning. You never thought, okay, this person someday is going to be president. And I don't think Harris is thought of in that way. I think Buttigieg is the sexy pick right now. I think that what he has done going on Fox News and crushing it, the way he has handled his job as transportation secretary. The only thing that could derail him is if some of the issues we're having with airlines and cancellations. I mean, that is under the purview of the FAA, which is under the Department of Transportation. That might derail him, but he's going to be front and center with some of the stuff in the infrastructure bill. I mean, he's got the profile, he's got the story, he's got that it factor that turns on voters of the Democratic Party. So I think he is very much the sexy pick right now. Gavin Newsom is definitely somebody who's raising his profile. I don't think he will challenge Biden. I just don't know that he would go there. But if Biden's not there, I think he's absolutely in. I think there is, you can just pencil, pen, Sharpie him in if Joe Biden is not around for 2024. I think he absolutely goes in. So those would be the first three. I am not writing off Gina Raimondo. I think that, they're a Northeastern, considered a moderate Democrat who has certainly gained a lot of respect in terms of what she's done as Commerce Secretary. I don't eliminate her. I think that, she could be that pick if maybe you're not feeling Harris, maybe you're not feeling Buttigieg, maybe you don't think America's ready for either one of them. But Raimondo's a good fallback plan. But I think she becomes in the mix only if two people you mentioned aren't in. I think Amy Klobuchar will go in if she feels that Chuck Schumer is doing his best Mitch McConnell, I ain't never going to die or leave impersonation, because I think you're right. I think she wants to be majority leader, quite frankly. I think she should be majority leader right now. I think that she should be leading the Senate now. And I think if she feels like that's not going to happen anytime soon, I think Klobuchar all of a sudden looks and says, you know what, maybe I'd go somewhere else. I think if there's a majority leader in her future, I think she'll stay in the Senate. I think you're right. She is definitely becoming a senatorial type. Speaking of which, two people who, if they win, I think would look at it. I look at Tim Ryan. If he happens to win Ohio Senate, I mean, that's a hell of a thing to bring to the table. Is I won in Ohio, people. Never mind that he ran against J.D. Vance, but I won in Ohio. I think if he wins that seat, I think he looks at it. I think Stacey Abrams, I think you're absolutely right. I think if she wins the governorship in Georgia this time around, I think she looks at it. I think if she loses, she almost is in Beto territory where she might need to take a few years off before she jumps in the pool. I think if she loses against Brian Kemp again, I think if you're Stacey Abrams, you're almost hoping Joe Biden runs for re-election, and then you can take a few years off, write a few books, get out and about, raise your profile, and hit it hard in 28. I think that a loss takes her out of the mix. When you mentioned Monica Biddix, I was like, I know where Bill's going, and I love it. John Cooper, absolutely. I look down the Southland, and I can't think of anybody else who is even near making a run. I mean, it's the South, but he's that dude. And I think that, again, North Carolina, love that one. Kyrsten Sinema, I don't think she runs for president. I think that she is smart enough to realize that it ain't happening. I mean, quite frankly, Ruben Gallego is going to kick her behind in the Senate primary in 24 anyway, which you might say she might as well get out of Dodge now. But, there's no there for Kyrsten Sinema. I think she has written her story, and she has made her bed of hedge fund managers' money. She's going to head to K Street and make a butt ton of cash. That's clearly what she wants to do. I think she's smart enough not to jump in a pool that she knows she's going to drown in. So, those are mine. Whitmer, I like that one as well. A lot of people think that she should have been Biden's pick for vice president. There's a lot of stories out there that said that Biden really liked Whitmer, that if he had his druthers, he would have went there and was talked into Harris. So Whitmer certainly has raised her profile. She also is known locally there as the Wolverine Queen. So, she's been getting her Daenerys Targaryen on, if you want to go Game of Thrones. And she certainly has the profile and the state. She feels more like a running mate to me right now. I certainly think that's a name that's not going to go away, but I don't know if she's going to run for the big chair. So that's kind of my flavor on those things.
Well, and thank you for that. And first thing I'll say is, like Jason Boone's, Gretchen Whitmer is a Spartan, although apparently her daughters are both attending the University of Michigan. So there are Wolverines in the Whitmer household.
Right.
I appreciate all of your comments. Yeah, I hear you about Raimondo. And I like Gina Raimondo very, very much. I don't see a lot of charisma there. I think she's a very capable executive, and I could see her for something of a higher profile in another Democratic administration than Commerce, although she is doing a good job at Commerce.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not sure. I mean, unless, like you said, unless some other people opt out, I don't necessarily see a path for her. The comments you made about the vice president were stunning, and I feel the same way. I mean, why would this not be a cakewalk? And let's not forget. And I know. I mean, there are going to be some more progressive folks who are watching or listening to this podcast, and they're going to go racism, misogyny, whole 9 yards. I'm not going to say that there's not some of that in there, but because I think that there is. But the bottom line is, she did not run a good campaign, and ultimately that's on her. I mean, that campaign was on fuego when it started. 20,000 plus people in Oakland for her kickoff.
Oh, man. Beautiful day.
Then she had her in the summer, she had her thump on Joe Biden in the one debate, about, that girl was me, and then the next debate, Tulsi Gabbard went the floor up with her on a question about the death penalty. So, I'm not sure that the vice president is that fast on her feet. Is she faster than Mike Pence? Yes, because then she came back to wipe him up during the vice presidential debate, and she definitely demonstrated a command of the issues, or should I say a command of the points that needed to be made. But her time as vice president has been uneven at best. Lots of stories, lots of reports, and apparently many of which emanating from the VP's office about dissatisfaction with how much the president involves her, doesn't involve her. It's not a good look. The optics are bad. Can she get it together? Absolutely she can. Will she, in time to stave off several other candidates from entering the fray? I don't think so. There's, like I said, there's a year for this election, a year, and it's the presidency. If the vice president were Joe Biden himself, I'm not sure that there would not be numerous other candidates entering this fray, especially considering, and again, the point you made earlier, Steve, what we're looking at the other side. I mean, we're looking at Trump 2.0, or in the form of Ron DeSantis, Trump Jr., neither of which are all that palatable and all that good for the American fabric. Right. So I definitely can see and would encourage a robust Democratic competition.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Bill. The more the merrier. Not 25, but a good solid 8 to 10. And two people I did not mention. One was Cory Booker, who I almost feel like Cory Booker would have a better access to the same lane that Kamala Harris wants than Kamala Harris does. If there was a, African American lane, which reality being what it is, there is. I think if you talk to folks in the African American community, especially in the political circles, and you said take Harris or Booker, they'd probably say Booker right now. They really would, and I think that's part of Harris's problem is I don't think Cory Booker has gone away, and I think that would complicate matters for her. The Warren Sanders dynamic is fascinating because if you remember when she got into the Senate, she was basically a protege of Bernie Sanders. They were one and the same. They were a unit. And then they fell out over 2020 because, Sanders, he really wants to go all the way with a lot of his views, his, democratic socialism, et cetera. And Warren was like, I don't know if I'm with you there, pal. And they kind of fell out. And so you wonder if in an open primary, they would both give it a run. I think they both have the ambition. They both are looking to do something. Sanders, at the end of his career, I don't know how much higher on the food chain Warren will go in the Senate. So they both have an interest. And I think they would go after each other. I don't think that if Warren went in, Sanders would say, no, I'm good. I've got my person in there, or vice versa. So, I think those are that dynamic will be very interesting to see how Warren and Sanders play each other out. So, I think it's a good, solid group. I think there's some good geography there. I think there is a good mix of ideology. If you have a Cooper sitting on stage with a Buttigieg, I think that's a really good mix. I'm sure my friends in the Hispanic community or the Latin community would say, excuse me,
we don't have any Latino candidates in the mix.
Who's repping us? So I'm sure that question will come up, and I'm thinking, especially with the issues the Democratic Party is having with that community right now in terms of a decreasing advantage, if you will, I think that has to be considered, if not one of the individuals sitting on the stage, but a potential running mate type of situation. So I think that's another thing that you got to think somebody's going to come out of that community, or somebody's going to come is going to make a run. I don't know if it'll be a Julian Castro again. If somehow Beto pulls off Texas, maybe it's a Beto O'Rourke out of Texas. But that is the one piece that I find missing in this whole puzzle that we're putting together.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And as I was going around the regions of the country, I was looking at the Southwest, and I can see, Governor, Lou John Gresham being a candidate, say, for vice president.
Yep.
Again, same issue as Gina Raimondo, a small state governor, running for the top, running for president. Not sure I would see her as having, lasting impact in that field. But I think I see her for there. Yeah, I mean, Beto could potentially be a candidate. Probably, I would certainly hope he doesn't jump into the field for president, but for VP, should he win. But no, there's a dearth of candidates there. Last thing I want to talk about is so we've just spent a good amount of time talking about all this what if. How likely is this to happen? Now, Steve, you started to allude towards it earlier. I'm going to give my odds, but I will also say that my odds can dramatically increase. I give the odds at 55-45 that this is going to happen, that the president is not going to announce for re-election. And I'll tell you why very briefly. When he ran, yes, he said he would intend to serve 2 terms, but he also said, I'm a transitionary figure. That's one. 2, there are weak spots in how this administration reaches out to the American people. Steve, I'm not sure that this administration knows how to reach out effectively to anybody younger than we are. And I'm not sure it can. I'm not sure this president can do that. I'm not sure that there's that level of self-awareness that that's who they are and what they are. But I do believe that's an issue, especially when the Republican side, be it Trump or whoever else, has mastery of social media and various other avenues to reach out to the population. Third, there's the simple matter of health.
Yeah.
You can't ignore that the president, while during the campaign, there was a lot of vitality there, a lot of energy, a lot of vigor. There are times where he's walking across the tarmac and he shows he's every bit of 79.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I mean, for those people who make fun of Joe Biden falling off the bike, well, jackass, you ride a bike at age 79 and let's see if you can even do it. Doubt that you can. But at the same, and I'm sure that the brain processes are there, but the body may be failing. I'm just going to call it where it is. The body may be failing. And I'm not sure that the rigors of the office of the presidency are amenable to any 79 or much less 86, which is what he'd be at the end of a second term, year-old man, regardless of how fit they are. Now, what could cause those odds to spike? Donald Trump running.
Yeah.
Joe Biden hates Donald Trump, hates
Right.
everything Donald Trump stands for.
Yes.
If Trump announces that he's in, I see that probability that Biden runs going to at least 75%. What do you think?
Yeah. Absolutely. Trump is the X factor. If Trump is in, I think the odds are greater than 75% because I think Joe Biden, being Joe Biden, will look at the field that we just laid out because, I mean, he's got very smart people around him. I think you're right about the point about outreach. If you look at who's around Biden, it's a lot of his old hands from the Senate. There are no people who understand today's digital media, I don't believe. Certainly not in a prominent position to get the message out and to communicate with those communities younger than ours across the board. So your point's well taken there. But I think the odds go through the roof because Ike will look at this list that we came up with and he will say, can any of these guys beat Trump? Or is there a possibility, probability, or threat that if any of these people are standing next to Trump, he will become president again? And I don't know from my standpoint, Bill, that I can look at any of these folks and say that it's a layup to beat Trump. I don't know that I can do that. And I think that if Biden says the same thing that I'm saying, I think he's going to jump in if for no other reason, but because he feels like I can beat the guy. I don't know if I can make it all the way to 86, but I can beat the guy in 2024. And I think he is right. I think Biden beats Trump. And I know there have been polls that showed Harris beating Trump and Harris beating DeSantis, but they're snapshot polls and I don't have any faith in them anymore. I think if Trump is not around, I'm with you. I think it's 50-50. I think he will take a long look at things after the midterms. He'll see how things are laying out. He and his people are, if nothing else, very smart strategists and tacticians. They will look at the whole picture and they'll decide what to do with it. But I think it's 50-50, and I would even lean towards your 55 of him not running if there's not a Trump running. The problem is Trump's going to hold out as long as he can, which keeps everything in limbo because his money train stops the minute he announces. And so Trump, for all the threats of, he's going to announce tomorrow or in the fall, he might not announce until next summer because he knows he can announce whenever he wants to and still win the thing. And that's going to screw up. You talk about a calendar in disarray. The Trump factor throws this whole calendar into a total state of chaos, which is probably exactly the way Trump likes it because he loves his chaos. So,
yeah. I have thoughts on that, but we need to wrap up.
Yep.
So
we'll hit them next time.
But I think that we can tackle that next time because
sure.
Along with Jason Booms, we will be talking about a cornucopia of issues, including a possible independent candidacy for president by one Lawrence J. Hogan Jr.
Yep.
So
Heard about
with that, Steve, thank you again for another terrific episode. We will
Thanks,
be
sir.
coming at you hard and heavy next Sunday with Jason Booms and the epic Forward Maryland 200. Be there or be a rhomboid prism. Have a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.